Hey everybody, welcome to Example of Play, the home for strategy, tactics, and more. Today's video is one I am really excited about. The demo for Burden of Command dropped a couple days ago, and I haven't even finished it yet. It's really long, but I've played through the first few missions, and I'm excited to show this game to you. At a glance, it looks like a World War II tactical level, squad level, hex encounter war game, but it is so much more than that. It bills itself as a leadership RPG, and after playing it for a while, that is exactly what it is. It it does so many cool things that really are ambitious and kind of push the genre in a direction that I really like. So let's jump right into it. All right, so here we are. This is like the third mission of the tutorial campaign. So as you can see at first glance, graphics are pretty simple. Looks like a standard kind of hex encounter tactical level war game. We've got our squads here. We've got our leaders up here. And the graphics are, nothing fancy. We can zoom in a little, but that's about it. It's a little pixelated if you zoom in. So yeah, that on that end of things, it's not that fancy, but that's not really the focus of the game. This game is all about what it says it is, a leadership RPG. And that becomes very apparent as you're playing through this tutorial campaign. Basically, you're still in training in the US. You're kind of getting to know. There's a bunch of basically like choose your own adventure things in between and during these scenarios. It's not just like in between the scenarios. It's like as you're playing this scenario, it'll react to what you're doing. The like umpire who's with you during the training exercise, he like drops in and comments on the things you do, and I thought it was really interesting. The game kind of teaches you how to play the game, not just in terms of the mechanics, which I'll show you in a second, kind of the basics of that. It teaches you the whole concept of like everything you do matters, even though it looks like a standard kind of war game. If you do something like moving your guys in an odd, like in a dangerous way when you could have done something safer, or if you're too cautious, like the game responds to that, at least during these first few scenarios for sure. And so I assume as you play through the campaign that it's the same kind of thing, which it says on the description of the game that this demo is like 5 hours and the full game is like 70 hours to play through the campaign. And I believe that because I've spent a few hours with it already, and I'm still here in the early levels. But the interesting thing is that like you could start over and play again and like make different choices and maybe score a little better. I'll show you all the in between mission like RPG stats stuff later, but it's really interesting. It doesn't play like what you think. Like just looking at it at a glance, it's not what you think it is really. But just to kind of go over the mechanics of the actual wargame part. So it's turn based, but each turn has multiple rounds, and it can take as many rounds as you need for each side to use up all their actions and pass. And then the interesting thing is, so we have our leaders up here. Your company, which in this scenario we just have two of the platoons, but I assume eventually you'd have the whole company on the field, or for at least some missions. You have three rifle platoons and then a weapons platoon. And then each one of those has a lieutenant who's leading it, and then you have a captain who's the company commander. And so as you're playing here, we can see we've got Lieutenant Dearborn. He's with his rifle platoon over here. We have Lieutenant Stern, who is with his weapons platoon here. So he's got a machine gun and a mortar. And then up here on the hill, Captain Lamb, who is the company commander. And so as you can see, the officers, they can be by themselves or they can be embedded with a unit. And then they can do a bunch of things. They can bolster, which basically like pumps up a unit to be better in every way, like move faster, attack better, for the next action it does. They can rally a squad that's been suppressed. They can do press, which basically like gives a squad an extra action that it wouldn't normally have. They can call for artillery, and then they can creep, which basically makes them move and not draw opportunity fire. Just looking at the map here, it's like if we have him selected, green are all the spaces he can see. Then the ones that have kind of the blue highlight are spaces he could move to, and then the ones with orange are spaces where an enemy could see you. There could be hidden enemies that you don't know about that can see you too, but those are like the spaces if you go there, you might draw opportunity fire. You can also use kind of waypoint movement to stay in the trees. You see like the little shield showing you where you've got better defense. So all that makes a lot of sense, very clean, clear on that part of it. If we select one of our squads, we can see they have a few different actions. So you can just right click an enemy to like shoot at it. This shows you a preview of kind of what you expect to get out of it. These guys are red because they're already suppressed and flanked. And so this is a game where like inflicting casualties, you can inflict casualties, but really what you're trying to do is suppress the enemy so you can close with and assault them. And that's how you like can take a whole position or force a surrender or force them to retreat. It's not a game that wants you to just sit here and shoot back and forth, really. And you can see these guys have yellow, so they're shaken, but they're not fully suppressed yet. So you wouldn't want to try to assault across here at them because they are still shooting back, where these guys are fully suppressed. And actually, I think they're running away right now. So the way it works is if we activate basically you have these little green circles that shows how many like action points or orders is what the game calls it that a unit has. The officers have like 4, where the individual units just have 2, and that can change as you go through the game. They get experience, they can get more action points than they start with. But if we move, say, this rifle squad that's in Lieutenant Dearborn's platoon, he becomes the active leader for the current round. So there's turns, and then within the turn, there's rounds. And only one of your officers can be leading each round. So like if we move these guys, now
wouldn't that be nice?
This squad has now been activated. It used one of Lieutenant Dearborn's actions, so it's gray there. Basically, he has to use an action to activate them, and then they use one to move. But now they're active, so they can move again, and it just uses up their other order, but it doesn't cost him anything. Okay, so then there, like as you're playing, the game will pop up all the time with these little like conversation things. Here, the umpire is just saying, "Okay, we took that objective." He writes it down. Good job. But sometimes they pop up and tell you that you've done something stupid, or maybe you should have done something different. So the game is kind of like constantly responding to what you're doing narratively, and I'm excited to see how that continues working as you play through the campaign and get to like the real battles and all those things that happen there. So now we can see, okay, it says leading up here. It means now this is Lieutenant Dearborn's turn. He's leading. So if we were to try to have this mortar fire or this machine gun team, it's saying we can't because Lieutenant Dearborn is the active leader. Now, the interesting thing that really ups the complexity, Captain Lamb, as the company commander, he's kind of like a wild card as a leader. He can take command of any unit. So even if one of the lieutenants is active, he can jump in and use his take command, which his command here is that. And basically he can tell any unit to do something, even if it's never his turn. He's basically always active. So that kind of adds a thing to it of like, where do you want your captain to be? Because he can help push a platoon harder. He can basically like give them bonus actions by being nearby. And then he can do the things like the bolster and rally. He can do that from being adjacent. He doesn't have to be in the actual hex with them. So where you put him on the field really matters. But like in this situation, he's up here on the hill because he was calling in artillery, and from here he could see really well. All right, so just for fun, we'll see if we can get Lieutenant Dearborn in position to assault these guys. So we'll have him move. Let's see if we can. You can use waypoint movement to like avoid that space where they might get shot at. Have him move there. Oh, no. He might not be able to move down and back up. All right, we'll just have to risk it. Okay, so we'll have him moved there.
Now, together.
Nope, they're getting shot at from over there. We probably should have suppressed those guys all the way before we did that. But they still made it. Now, he's got one action left. We can try to assault these guys, but it might say... Usually it wants you to bolster before you assault to like kind of pump up your guys before they go in. But, well, we'll try it anyway, just see what happens. It might fail.
Come on, advance.
All right, now it looks like it worked. So they surrendered, and we took that space. So that's kind of like what you're trying to do is fire an enemy, get them cowering down, and then get in there and take them. But after we did that, there was a machine gun over here in the woods that scared our guys off, but that's okay. We took out that squad or forced them to surrender. Now, if we come over here, these guys, even though they're part of Dearborn's squad or Dearborn's platoon, they can't move because he's used up all his actions running across the field and assaulting there. But Captain Lamb is up here. He can see them, and basically the game kind of simulates abstracts like messengers and stuff, sending a runner. So we could use one of his take command points here and activate them and have them move up so that they are joined with the rest of the platoon. And now they still have an action left. We could have them move again into, let's say, this space, just so they're ready to fight with that machine gun on the next turn. So now this round is, we've used up all of Dearborn's actions. We could still use Captain Lamb to, say, activate the mortar or the machine gun, but we'll just end the round. Now, Lieutenant Dearborn's still, basically his squad, his whole platoon's exhausted out. They've used all their actions. They can't do anything. But Lieutenant Stern over here, he hasn't done anything yet, so he could have these guys start shooting.
Fire! Fire!
And now we've hopefully suppressed those guys. Yep, so now they're red. We can see they got an officer with them too, we can see, but we've got them red, so now they're cowering. Now, one thing would be, maybe it would have been better to shoot at them first, then move across here. But that also risks then you would have had to wait around for Dearborn to act, and maybe the enemy moved out of that position or they moved up or something, you know. So that's kind of the trade-off of, you know, which leader do you activate first, or do you use your captain's take command to get those bonus actions in. Then, and the question is like, okay, do we leave our captain up here on the hill, or should we move him down to join the platoon as they're fighting through the woods down here? Because he can help do more. And like an interesting thing, the game will comment on, hey, you know, your officer never joined the men at the front, like never went in on an assault or used, like it's really interesting. Like it'll comment on like, did you use your rallies and your bolsters and stuff? The game will tell you like, do exactly this, but then it'll kind of comment on what you actually do, which is interesting. Especially, I noticed like in one of the first couple of tutorial missions where it's giving you these very simple like, click this unit, move it here, and if you just do exactly that, the game will actually be like, well, why didn't you use the waypoint movement to go through the forest? Like, what were you thinking? Because I told you about the waypoint movement. Why didn't you use it? Which I thought that was interesting. And I thought it was kind of the game teaching you in sort of a meta way how it's going to work, like in the scenarios, like that it's not, this isn't just a simple war game. Like it's wanting you to think about like, what would you really do if you were one of these leaders? Like, where would you position yourself? That sort of thing. So it's really interesting in that regard, that although it looks simple at first glance, there's so much going on here. It really is like an RPG as much as it is a tactical war game. So we'll jump away from here for a second and look at kind of the stats screen that you see in between missions. So here we are. This is the screen that you see kind of between scenarios. You get the date, where you're at, a little picture. One thing I'll comment on here, it's kind of hard to capture for this video, but the presentation of the game, like between scenarios, is really awesome. There's tons of period photos. There's things like bits from field manuals and stuff, newspaper articles, magazines from the time, like propaganda posters and stuff. There's a ton of these things. There's also videos with interviews of real veterans. So just like, you know, a Band of Brothers at the beginning of each episode, it had the veterans kind of talking about their experience, and then you saw what they went through. This game has videos like that too, which is, it's really cool. Like it gets you very immersed in the leadership, like the emotional side of it. Like I said, this looks like a standard war game, but really it's not. You're getting this kind of uh, immersion of all these elements, kind of making it real for you, and I think that that's really cool. For the demo, it also has little videos from the developers kind of talking about the game, explaining it to you, the tutorial part of it, but also like the design decisions, like why does it work this way or that way, what their thought process was on how they made the game. So I highly encourage playing this demo because it's really an interesting experience compared to a lot of games demos. Like this one really um, gets you into it, and also it's cool to have the developer telling you like, hey, we designed the game to work like this, and um, that this is why we did it that way, and here's how you do it. So that's cool. Now for before you go to the next scenario, you can do this aid your men, and this is where we get some of the kind of stats RPG stuff. You can see this is your rifle company. You can customize some of this stuff, so I'll show you. But and I really don't know like how the game plays out in these tutorial missions. You're kind of like the first platoon's lieutenant is sort of the role you're playing, but I don't know if that changes over the course of the game, or if you're kind of playing all the officers together, or if you are you are that guy, or if that's just the way it works for the tutorial part. But you have a captain who's your company commander. If you click on that, you can see he has like stats that can be upgraded over time. If you say click on one of your lieutenants, so they've got like stress, combat fatigue, which during the tutorial that you don't have to worry about that because they're not in real combat yet. But once you get to real combat, that'll start being part of it. How stressed they are, how much combat fatigue they have, um, how many casualties. So obviously your officer's one person, but like the units can take casualties that need to be replaced. And then experience. So if once you hit this experience, it goes up to 500. But at each 100 interval, basically that squad gets a little bit better. They get a little star biome, so they're a little stronger at things. Like this machine gun squad is there. They're at 100. If we, okay, like these guys are at 100. And basically that makes them, they shoot better, they move better, they have better morale, all that kind of stuff. You can also click on like individual squads. You can edit, you can change their name, change the portrait. Each platoon, you can change like what their insignia is. You could name them something different if you wanted to, like give them all Sergeant so-and-so's squad or something like that. And then the leaders can be customized a little bit more. So like Dearborn, as we saw him earlier, we can come in here. We can like rename him if you wanted to name him whatever. You can pick like the insignia for his unit, but then also these mindsets. So these are kind of like perks that unlock passive and active like special abilities for your officers, and each one of them is different. So there's like compassion, caution, discipline, professionalism, cunning, zeal. And so some of these have like active abilities. So like zeal has a follow me ability, which launch a highly enhanced assault, take no suppression, but you can still take casualties. And then berserk, passive ability. Unit suffers casualty may go berserk and attempt to assault the nearest enemy. So like that kind of makes that platoon, the leader in that platoon now will take on some flavor depending on which of these mindsets you take, and each one can go up to level 3. And then you can have different ones active. I haven't got far enough in the game to use that really, but it's interesting. So as the game goes on, these guys, you could develop them in different ways to kind of give them some more abilities and flavor. Then you also have these stats, loyalty, which is basically you get from making decisions that favor your men. Prestige, which you get sort of from decisions that favor the mission. Now, of course, you always want to try to do both, but it's not always going to be an option. So like in the tutorial, at least most of these are sort of like if you complete the mission fast, you get mission prestige points. If you avoid casualties, you get loyalty points. But there's other things too. So like as you're going through the missions and between them, you get these little choose your own adventure kind of decisions, and a lot of them. Like it's not just like one thing. It's like extensive, constant, and those things will give you some of these points too, and kind of shape the story. And then as you go, you'll have replacements later, but you can spend those prestige and loyalty to increase like the experience of these guys to make them better leaders. The trust you can increase so that he's more trusted by his guys. They're gonna like do what he wants more and be more effective at it. And so that really is an interesting kind of twist of like how you play is going to shape how your leaders are, and like how effective they are. And then your units, of course, you want them to gain experience so that they get better, and avoid them taking casualties. But that's kind of like one of the balance things is casualties versus um, getting the mission done. And then finally, I wanted to give you guys like a flavor of the like choose your own adventure stuff between the mission. Well, I say between, there's between the mission and during the missions. And I feel like it would almost be spoilers. Like it's a weird thing, like in a war game that, oh yeah, like spoiler alert. I don't want to show you too much because it's stuff that's going to happen as you're playing these scenarios. And I don't know, how much of it's going to always happen a certain way, or you get different results depending on the choices you make or how the mission goes. There's definitely a lot of things that trigger these like little conversations to pop up, and you get feedback on what you're doing, like I said. So you might get a different stuff than what I get as I play through the campaign. And I would think, I would have to imagine the further you get into the campaign, there's going to be hard choices. And like I don't know if your leader I don't even know if your leaders can die. I would assume they can. Like what happens then would be interesting to see. But just to give you an idea, this is the very first scenario, so not spoiling too much. And so we get like the little sound effects. We're training in Virginia. We haven't gone to war yet. We get like description. We're with the platoon sergeant. You can pick what you want to say. Sometimes it doesn't matter what you say. Sometimes it'll tell you like this is going to give you this or that, or like a chance of getting extra experience points or extra prestige, but maybe you won't. And so, and then also some of it's just flavor. Like you can say different things that will shape like how verbose or stoic your officer is, or how sarcastic he is, which I guess will just play in. Gives it says it doesn't affect the gameplay. It's just for fun, like to kind of give yourself some personality of like how your guy acts and the things he says, like what kind of leader he is. So like I said, it really is an RPG in a true sense. It's just an RPG that is also a tactical war game. So as we're going, we can say different things. And then here, like the first decision, it didn't really matter what we said, but here we're picking kind of our background. Like, were we in the army before? Were we a reservist? Are we a new lieutenant? So that kind of sets your background. So like I said, I don't know if like you're playing like you specifically are the lieutenant of the first platoon is like who you are, or if you're kind of all the officers because you control all of them. But you get all these choices that kind of shape like your background and stuff. And then that first lieutenant in the first platoon, he starts the game without a name, so then you set the name. So I feel like you kind of are him. So it'll be interesting to see as the game goes on how that works. Like, what if he dies? Does that end your campaign? I don't know.
So here I am
And
in boot
then
camp
yeah, in the
somewhere in
demo,
Virginia, 1942.
the developer pops in with these videos, kind of describing the game to you and talking about it. These images, sometimes you can get extra information about them,
So here I am.
and then brings us into it. But like sometimes the little images, like you can hover over them, it gives you information about like where was this photo taken. Lots. This game is just jam packed with like historical photos and stuff, to kind of really give you a sense of being there. And there's even an option. A lot of them are colorized, but you can make them be black and white if you want to. But the colorized versions are great, and especially like some of the stuff. There was one where they're firing a mortar, but they have like these yellow training shells, which, if it was black and white, you wouldn't be able to see that at all. But having it in color, I think really brings it to life. And so then, yeah, here, this is like, yeah, the first tutorial is just telling you exactly what to do. And so we're just moving and all that kind of stuff. But let me see if another little event pops up. Yeah, so you move here and then it's popping up. It's telling you a little bit more. And then like these are the verbosity which is like how much your leader likes to talk. So you can be like a stoic leader or one who yells and says a lot of stuff, and then you can make decisions that like make the men happy or make decisions that get the mission done, and that all ties into what kind of like you get more
This is a
experience
leadership.
points and everything. So I probably rambled on long enough. You've got an idea. This is the demo. The demo's on Steam. Like you can play it right now yourself. It says it lasts about 5 hours. I haven't finished it yet. The demo has like 20 achievements that you can get, which is cool. So I highly encourage trying out this demo because it's going to give you a great idea of what it's like to play the game. And uh, I'm excited because this is a game that I feel like I've been hearing about it for years and years and years, and seeing the images of it and thinking, wow, that's a really cool idea for a game, but like, is it ever going to come out? And then all of a sudden, I started seeing some information about it, and then oh yeah, here's a demo and you can play it right now. And after playing the demo, I am excited. The gameplay is, like I said, it looks simple, but really it's got a lot of nuance to it as you're playing, trying to maximize how you're using your leaders, using your squads, and then the whole thing that these guys aren't. It's not just a normal war game. Like your leaders are guys that you're gonna like get to know, that you're gonna spend a lot of time with, and like shaping and leveling them up, and like picking what kind of leader they are. And then your squads are like the same way. You're going to be with these same guys through the whole campaign. And so it really makes you think about, well, do I want to, sacrifice? Am I going to take this action that's risky that might lose some of these guys that we've, been with me this whole time since going through basic training in Virginia? Um, so very exciting game. I look forward to playing the full version and the campaign and seeing where it goes. Just playing this tutorial of this like basic training situation has been really fun, and so I look forward to the full game. And I'll definitely make another video once it comes out, and maybe if I finish the demo, I might make another video just seeing how it goes. I think it extends into a couple scenarios in the actual war, but I'm not sure. But anyway, like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video and want to see more content like this, and thanks for watching.